Hello and welcome to Stop 2 on the Savage Garden podcast tour of the Vampire Lestat. We are your duo, Kat and Naomi, and today we're headed to Toledo, an episode which is slightly gentler on the sensory stimulation than Detroit.
Mm.
How did we find this one, Naomi?
Well, this episode may as well be called Mamma Mia, considering that's all it's about. This is this is Gabriella's episode, complete with Jennifer Ellie doing a delightfully fruity Italian accent that I promise not to try and do throughout, because even though it's very tempting, and it is all about, as Lestat puts it, the Epiphany at the end of the previous episode. So Toledo is all about the frankly horrifically toxic relationship between Lestat and Gabriella. And we start off with our framing device of the failures. And in this particular episode, I don't know if people are keeping up with this, but we get album 8, side A, and album 12, side A. So Lestat clearly has a great deal to say about Gabriella.
So this episode is all about Gabriella. It's all about the relationship between Lestat and Gabriella, which is obviously deeply, deeply unhealthy. And I mean, it's kind of brilliantly played between Sam Reed and Jennifer Ellie, but it is not healthy, it would be fair to say. And we start off back in Auvergne in 1772, and we see the graves of Lestat's 5 dead siblings. And that's, 8 children. That's a brutal deal for Gabriella.
Yeah,
That's
but that's what they did back then. That's all women were. They were baby machines, and because of that, not many of them survived.
Yeah, I mean, 8 children. And you've got teeny little Lestat there, this poor little stuttering angel, this little blonde-haired angel, surrounded by his grim, horrific brothers. And the Marquis is so gross. He's just really, really revolting. And you've just got Gabriella sat there, completely uninterested in any of them, head stuck in a book, clearly loathes them. And then the monastery comes along and says, oh, we can take care of Lestat. And this is really different to the book, because in the book, Lestat likes going to the monastery. He's very happy there because they teach him to read, they teach him an education, and Gabriella is the one that wants to deny him that. Whereas here, she throws the jewel, doesn't she? She basically says, take him, make sure he gets an education. I really felt for her when she asks the question and he answers to the Marquis. And she says, I asked the question, because dear God, has that happened to me a lot in my professional life.
Yeah, I mean, not much has changed in what,
No,
200 years.
it's like, hi, yes, no, that was a wonderful suggestion that you've just made. That isn't precisely what you have repeated from what I said 10 minutes ago. Good for you. Good for you, boy. So proud of you for coming up with that tremendously original idea. But yeah, she goes to the monastery, and then we have again a little reference to the actors. And in the novel, Lestat again runs away with the actors. He just completely runs away, has a lovely time, wants to be an actor, and the Marquis sends his brothers to fetch him back and drags him back. And I think they pay the actors off. Whereas in this, he just has a little bit of fun in a pub for an evening. And, Gabriella is just sort of a bit of a statue to all of this while all of this is going on in the background. She intervenes when she has to, but otherwise she's not really interested. The line about how she paid a midwife to nick her womb so we couldn't humiliate her again. It's just awful. I mean, I'd have just killed the Marquis, to be super honest, but And then we get back to her and Lestat calling everybody cabbages. And I'm going to be honest, if you were in that family, that probably would drive you insane very quickly.
And they don't call them cabbages, they call them cabbage or whatever it is.
Cabbages, cabbage, 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 cabbage. And then, I mean, his brothers just beat the living hell out of him. I mean, the Marquis tells him to break his legs. It was horrific. And we have Sam Reed saying in voiceover that she was a cold beauty and that he grew hard by example. And then we finally see human Lestat. And it's a little bit of a shock when you actually see him. I couldn't work out if they gave Sam Reed brown contacts or if they just made his eyes look really dark because he has blue eyes, but as Lestat, human stat, he looks very, very different to the usual. Wonder whether they wanted to give him context to sort of distinguish between, the bright blue of Lestat's eyes.
Yeah, probably. And I think because they've also given Yada brown eyes as well, haven't they? Because he has to wear contacts.
Oh, yes. Yes, that's true. Yeah, I mean, God bless Yada. Yada took me right out of the narrative last week, but he doesn't feature in this episode. And the Marquis at this point is absolutely disgusting. He is pockmarked, grotesque thing. And Gabriella is just fed up to the back teeth of being surrounded by these pathetically weak men. But she's also noticeably aged. She's got this great big long mane of white hair and is very clearly dying of consumption, which, this is a bad lot for Gabriella. She's been married off to this disgusting man when she was a child. She's had to have multiple children with him, few of whom have lived to adulthood, two of whom she clearly despises, and now she's dying. So, as lives go, I think we can all agree that Gabriella Vecchi has not had the best time of it.
Yeah.
And we've got Lestat, who at this point is just fed up of everyone's shit. I mean, why is he pointing a gun at a pregnant woman?
Well, she is, she is with his brother. So I think that the assumption is that she's equally as cruel
Mm,
as
as the brother.
the brother. And he's just well because it's a he because he obviously he points at his brother and he gets a little bit of a little bit of a response, but then in pointing it at his wife he gets the bigger response, which is obviously what he's wanting. But I mean, it's another mouth to feed in that house, Again, that his brothers have had wives and all they are doing is pumping out children, and it's just,
Pumping out endless
yeah, it's
kids.
just dwindling away that Leon Court's money, which is sort of keeping them above the villagers who are forever coming to beg. I mean, when they're all sat eating,
Oh,
that
it's
big feast,
grotesque.
and they're all like, "Oh, please, just share a little bit."
Please, can we have some food? You bourgeois scum, just sat there scoffing away while you are surrounded, massively outnumbered by peasants, and you're not prepared to give them any food. And of course, Gabriella at this point is just outright taunting them. And she's the one that makes the stat put the gun down. The brother doesn't even move, he just yells at him. And she basically just says to the stat, go be a man. And so he's had enough of it and finally rises to the taunt and goes to hunt the wolves with Mojo. Mojo. I was very sad that don't really get enough of Lestat and his mastiff. I mean, I get it. Dogs are expensive and you have to have trainers and everything else. But I was like, oh, I'm sad now. And the lines are so dark, like the good in me lost in the monastery. I mean, that's a dark line because obviously the show is going a slightly different way to the book. And then the wonder in me lost in a traveler's wagon. It's like, Jesus, fuck, Lestat, what have you like? What's been going on in your life up to this point? And we get an AMC appropriately budgeted wolf attack, which means we get a very brief glimpse and we hear Mojo dying, which is desperately upsetting. And then we get this really, really wrong scene where Lestat has been horrendously mauled. He's bleeding. He's in shock. And Gabriella's just like, damn, boy, you killed 8 wolves. Well done. Proud of you. Well, even she doesn't say proud of you. She can't bring herself to say that much. She is cold. But she likes the idea of Lestat being revered and the family shamed. And I think part of that is because she wants to be Lestat in that moment. She kind of wants to be, the swaggering person that can go out there and have the freedom to kill wolves and do whatever she wants. And she doesn't have that because she is trapped in this terrible, terrible family situation. And Lestat tells her that he fantasized about killing his family. And then we get this wildly inappropriate monologue that we can't even blame Roland Jones for because this is straight from the book. Anne Rice, you are not a well girl, in which she basically tells Lestat that she fantasizes about swimming naked in a stream and then going into the local tavern and just having sex with everybody. And while she is doing this, she is sort of tending Lestat's wounds, but really just giving him a hand job.
Yeah, I mean, she starts off tending the wounds, and then I think it's probably a combination of her story and her hand's proximity, and they both kind of, yeah, it goes in a very
Goes in a very wrong way.
Game of Thrones direction.
Very Targaryen direction. Yes, his body reacts, and she is not a good person, and does not move away. So, yeah, she basically gives him a full-on hand job while the nurse in the background is
Well, I
like,
don't think
"What
she
the
gives him a
fuck?"
full one
Oh
because
no, she doesn't.
obviously
True, true.
she tells the help to finish him. Um,
Yes, which I presume meant both
yes.
definitions of that. Jesus Christ, being poor was sucked in the pub. I mean, it still sucks now, but God, it sucked then. But I mean, she finishes this story by triumphantly saying, I belong to no one. And he says, except me. And she does not agree with him. And that's the problem with the crux of their relationship is that Gabriella just wants freedom and the ability to do what she wants and to be empowered and to be, fully alive and passionate to be able to do anything. And Lestat just wants his mummy.
Yeah, I mean, as a mother, I will say, like when he does say that line, except for me, and say, well, all because coming at it from the mother point of view, all because she is his mother does not mean that she is his property. The
Oh,
same
no,
way
no,
as all because,
absolutely.
being married to somebody does not give that. And I can really feel, especially back because it hasn't changed now. As you were saying, you find yourself in rooms where, men are, not talking to you, even though you're the one that's asking the question and stuff. But it's a similar thing with mothers. As soon as you become or even utter the idea of maybe thinking about having children, that is all that you are. All you are to everyone. All I am to the school system is my daughter's parent. They don't call me by my name. And they just call me Aurora's mum. And that is,
Oh,
yeah, and it's
mm.
gross. And it's like, no, I am a person. And I am very much not, the cookie cutter stereotypical mum that you see in things. So as cold as Gabriella comes across, I kind of get it to a point because she didn't really want to be a mother. She was married off so young.
She never wanted motherhood. No, I mean, she was sold.
That was her purpose, that was her end of the bargain was, will you provide children? And that would have obviously been something that happened to a lot of women back then is, they didn't want children, but they were forced into it. And why should all because she suddenly has a child in front of her, why does that mean she magically now has to be this fluffy, cuddly, caring thing? I mean, it's not right. And it's horrible that Lestat then has to grow up with a father who clearly hates him and then a mother that, denies affection. But equally, Gabriella never wanted this circumstance. And I think the reason why she does have that connection with Lestat is because she, as you said, she wants to be him.
She wants to be
He
him, yeah.
is not only is he obviously, this like handsome, this handsome young man, but as you say, he gets that freedom. He can do whatever he wants. He can go and hunt. He can, dress,
Mhm.
in the way that she wishes to. And yeah, I do feel for that side of her, this woman that had motherhood thrust upon her. And now, like even now, like 200 or whatever years later, sun still come calling. It's bad enough knowing that, they're going to live with you until they're 30 these days because of the housing. But imagine 200 years down the line, you've still got, Mummy, can you come and see me? Like, oh, for God's sake, kid, when's my time?
Well, this is the thing because they're just coming at it from two completely different perspectives, because that's the perspective she's coming at it from. The perspective he's coming at it from is, I just need somebody, anyone. He's not with Louis. He doesn't have friends. He has the band, but as we see, they have some issues. So all he wants is some degree of affection and love. And because the way that has only ever been demonstrated from Gabriella is in the way of sexual love, he's prepared to accept that. But what he actually wants, as you said, is his mum. He just wants somebody to snuggle, and she's having none of it. And I mean, in the past, the way in which she just very calmly tells him that, oh, by the way, I'm dying. I'm not going to um, survive the winter. And then just walks off while he's devastated by the news and starts screaming because he's obviously in shock and still horrendously injured. She's the worst. And I mean, I get it, but I feel like the two of them are coming at it from such different places. And this is why actually she was the worst person for him to call, because she would have been better off just living her life comfortably and free without them, being back together in this toxic relationship where she is on a very different road to him and sees their relationship very, very differently. And as I said, we can't really blame her for that, but it's sad that that's all Lestat has in his life, because he needs something very different than what she can or is prepared to offer him, because they're in very, very different places. And he wakes up in his beautiful coffin after a nightmare, obviously slightly confused about how he got there. And we are presented with naked Eric Bogosian.
You got to say that's a wake up call, isn't it? He wakes up from a nightmare from his coffin and he's confronted with Daniel Malloy's arse staring back at him. Like,
And I love the way that he doesn't even comment on it. He just looks around, is vaguely disgusted, and continues on with his life. I mean, like, I could cope with waking up and seeing a naked Eric Bogosian. I'd be perfectly fine with that. But I can understand that Lestat, maybe not. I feel like he should have like restricted the top player of the bus, because he's clearly not thrilled with Daniel and everybody else being on it. And then we have the band, who are obviously freaked out to hell. And I'm very pleased that AMC have put closed captioning on the screeners this week, because everyone talks at the same time and with a combination of French and Italian accents as well. It's a nightmare. And I would have missed the glory of Christine's comments during this conversation, where she's just basically like, we've got an NDA. You've all signed an NDA. Shut the fuck up. And when Dee starts panicking and points out that she's the social media coordinator, um, Christine responds by saying that she's a cocaine whore bucket,
yeah.
which I felt was a little unkind. But, I would just want to make it very clear my deep and abiding love for Christine. You're my
Yeah,
girl.
I mean,
I love her.
obviously, because in this sequence, yeah, they're all like freaking out. Alex in
They're all
particular
talking at the same
is,
time and they're all going nuts, and Alex is freaking.
Alex is, just, you kill people, blah, blah, blah. But then it's TC asking, do they play baseball like in Twilight,
Yeah.
which which I think is fantastic. And just, Salamander in almost a Wayne's World kind of moment is sat there with the book.
Yeah, he's very on board.
asking, if he's got the fire gift, and then the book immediately like bursts into flames. And then he's asking, when was the last time you saw Armand? And he's doing his homework. He wants to know his new bandmate more.
And Gabriella is now Sophia, which and the whole moment. I mean, that's just like when they're both being so flirty with each other. It's like, oh no, this is wrong. This is very, very wrong. And as Lestat points out, you're being very patient. Read the vampire incest factor. And then we go into the title sequence quite late on in the episode. And each title sequence ends with Lestat saying something slightly different. So last week's was Stay Cool. And this week he says, Fabulous, moving on. Truly, truly deep there, Lestat. But I love that they're doing this. And this episode was directed by Jonathan Sinasorich. I have undoubtedly massacred that. Apologies. And Kevin Hanna, and directed by Craig Zisk, who directed the previous episode. And we go back, and the band's still freaking the fuck out. We got Fareed very calmly telling them, don't worry about it. Lestat gets most of his blood from the farm. And which Daniel is like, yeah, they pay like drug addicts and cash people to come and give their blood. And then Lestat's like, look, come on, you've not seen me during the day. You helped me get the car washed in wherever it was because he killed a KFC night manager. And just like Salamander's just like immediately into the law. He's like, oh, who's the cashier? Tell me more. Tell me more. And you've got Lestat in his beautiful kimono, looking very fine. And TC is like saying, wait, are all these songs about Louis? He's like,
Lewis.
no, no, no. Lewis, sorry. All these songs about Lewis. And Lestat obviously corrects her and says it's Louis. And then in the most tragic down bad line I think I've ever heard says, I lived 54,565 days before meeting Louis. Angel, you've counted it. You've counted the days. That is not a good example of how you are not interested in Louis anymore. And Daniel, of course, being Daniel, is immediately flirting with Gabriella and pointing out that there are 3 vampires on the tour bus, which of course immediately causes everybody to freak out even more. But yes, he's a Taurus on the cusp of Aries, apparently, which is nice. And yeah, Alex is having straight up issues and decides to leave, which is sad. But Lestat bids him adieu, but straight out also threatens him, which, isn't great. But I did like that Salamander's main question, which Lestat can read their minds, is whether Lestat will have sex with him.
Yeah. It's an interesting sequence because this is something that you would see in your music biopic, at some
Yeah.
point there's
Oh,
some,
the band fracturing.
yeah, some, big, somebody goes too far with the drugs or whatever, somebody ends up dead, they all part ways. And, from Alex's point of view, why would any of them stay with this vampire? So he's
Mm,
like, well, we're leaving. And then everybody else just
just
kind of stops,
goes,
eh, including his brother.
including his brother, who's like, who's we? Who's we in this situation, Alex? I kind of
Yeah.
preferred it when there was only one guitar. Alex, soz. Bye.
Yeah, and then obviously we get Lestat, going around sort of like reading their minds to, put across to Alex, that, they're all quite happy staying. But he lets Alex go, but then he does, kind of tell him like,
Keep your mouth shut.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he does also say, you are, you know, TC wasn't talking, yeah, she wasn't talking about, getting rid of you. She was talking about Larry. Um, but yeah, so he's Alex is in the wind as of now. And I mean, obviously, we'll get to the performances later on, but they do a really good job at immediately losing a guitarist.
They do.
Um, considering that he was there, considering that he was there before Lestat, they do a really good job at completely reworking all of the songs ready for their next set.
I feel like I feel like this was Larry's moment. I feel like Larry was like, great, one down. I feel like he already had some of these stashed away somewhere. But yes, they do it very well. Um, and now we have Lestat looking fabulous, it has to be said, with incredible curls and this sort of furry jacket. And he and Gabriella are coming up with their cover story, and we get the terrible line of my maker called for his mama, and I came and came and came. And it's like, Gabriella, no, no, Gabriella. This is like
Yeah.
wildly inappropriate, Gabriella. And Lestat says, okay, we should have companionship without the cum. And it's like, no, this is getting worse. This is getting what. Look, we appreciate this is an episode all about your Oedipal relationship, but this is just wrong. And then, of course, they start talking about how they met in this fake reality of which they are creating for the band members. And it still just comes down to they were wearing the same costume, and Gabriella recognized herself in it because that's all it comes back to. She wants to be Lestat. She recognizes herself in Lestat. And now, of course, she's got the life she wants. You know, she's free. She can do whatever. She's glamping in Husavik or whatever she's doing. And she is a little sparing with her maternal affection on the grounds that she only saw him twice last century, which whew, is a little bit confusing. And then they're following around the glass salesman. And I'm a bit confused, but I am assuming that they've been tracking the glass salesman from place to place, just murdering them.
Yeah, I think that's the thing now. They're like trying to see, which one of them is the last one standing as they do. And I kind of this section to me feels a little bit only lovers
Filler?
left alive.
Yeah, it's a little bit filler, but you're right. It's also only a little bit only lovers left alive in terms of sort of vampires doing ordinary things while talking about extraordinary things.
There's just something about the way like they're styled and stuff as well that
Yeah.
is kind of giving, a bit of Hiddleston and Swinton. And yeah, they go to a strip bar with a
Yes.
ping pong
The
strip
ping
club.
pong
Um,
lady.
they
Very
are
talented ping pong
very,
lady.
very talented ladies. Yes.
And we've got real Rashid in the strip club in the
Eating from
background.
the buffet. You don't eat from the buffet in a strip club, real
I know.
Rashid.
I was about to say, Rashid, what are we doing here? Who taught you? Who taught you things?
It's worse than the COVID cookies at a convention, that
Oh
is.
yeah, no, this is my personal bugbear of life that these conventions that we tend to go to have these stalls that just put massive trays of cookies out for everybody to cough and spit and oh, sorry, I can't. Just upsets me enormously. But no, Rashid, no eating from the buffet at a strip club, for God's sake, man. It's like eating from the peanuts in a bar outside a male urinal. Like, what are we doing? Ugh. Um, and his brother appears in the strip club because the first of the muses to appear in real life in this episode. And as he calls her, the Oracle Jenks. So it's the first little glimpse that actually maybe the LSD episode wasn't just a one-off and that things are still a little bit, out of equilibrium. And I do love Gabriella in this episode, just like fo fake flirting with the glass salesman and going, that does it have spaghetti? When he's talking
Yes,
about
because he's
pizza.
like going, "Oh, if you ever miss home, you should go to this Italian place." And obviously, she's gonna be just as condescending back to him. And she's like, "Oh, but does it have spaghetti? Does it,
Yeah.
because like this is so rare to find spaghetti anywhere in this country."
And Gabriella then mentions the Great Conversion. And what I love about it is that she's clearly really into it. Lestat is just confused. Because as we have said before, my delightful beloved angel is Vampire Ken. Of course he's not involved in the Great Conversion unless he's dragged into it. He doesn't care about making more vampires. He only cares about the people he loves. but Gabriella is like on a bit of a recruiting spree. She's excited by all the sex club workers and entertaining herself with them in front of Lestat. And she's asking him about his sex life. And this whole sequence is insanely sexually charged. I mean, Sam Reed and Jennifer Lee have an incredible chemistry, but it's just so wrong because he's just completely and utterly entranced by her. And they're like practically using sexual chemistry as they're watching like their next meal at the motel. And of course, he is chatting to his kids on the phone, but he's just cheated. So we get that in. We get the little thing of, well, we can't feel too bad for the fact that his children are at home on the grounds that he has just slept with some prostitute or something from the sex club. And yeah, it's just I mean, it's a great scene, but it's a very wrong scene. And then Lestat goes to meet Thomas Pitt
For a fan
for
experience.
his exclusive fan experience. I like the name. Um, Not clear whether we are referring to the sort of notorious slave owner here in kind of a reclamation of the name, or if we are referring to the film.
Yeah.
I suspect little of column A, little of column B. But we get Christine and Lestat on one side and vampire Grace Jones and Gucci, who is Lemuel, who is Louis' latest hookup. And they are arguing over the damages to the hotel that happened in the previous episode. Because the Detroit Coven came in, the Tooth Team, and smashed up Louis' beautiful new boutique episode. Sorry, new boutique hotel. And I like that Louis is like, he's just very sort of gently and fondly amused in this sequence. And of course, this was the one that was released so far in advance, and everyone was trying to like work out what the context was.
Yeah.
And so it just being like a discussion over damages, but not really, makes it even funnier. Because Louis like, babes, you hired Daniel, you stole Fareed, you're writing constant songs about me. Like, are you okay? This is like a really clear cry for help. So I got on a plane and came to see you because I care. And the stat is like, fuck you. You insulted me page after page after page in this book. And at this point, Louis still thinks that the stat went to Paris to kill them. And the stat doesn't say anything to defend himself. And then we get the whole direct to play speech, which, I mean, when this played at New York Comic Con, and this was supposed to be the exclusive clip that no one had heard, but of course they'd bootlegged the clip from SDCC. And so everyone spoke the lines along with them. You could see the cast on stage going, what the fuck? As everyone screamed, I bet, I bet. And I mean, they're just rage baiting each other at this point. I mean, they're just rage baiting the hell out of each other.
Yeah, I mean, I do think the exchange about price is interesting because obviously Lestat's like, oh, I see you've got Sam working, for
Yes.
you. Have we forgotten about Sam? We've got about Sam in Paris, and Louis is like, oh, well, he's paying his debt off. And then he's like, it's not like he didn't like come and learn the lines and stuff. And I think obviously Lestat neither confirmed nor denies
Mm.
why he was involved with the trial, but at least the impression that comes across here is to Lestat, he might have learned the lines and he might have performed in the show, but
Didn't
he
fucking
wasn't
direct it.
Armand
Yeah.
who was directing it and then going home and sleeping with one of the victims every day.
Yeah. And there's lots of like jibes about our beloved capitalist king here when he's constantly talking about Louis' bottom line and every sin negotiated. And Christine is just completely done with this shit. She's just like, I cannot be doing with you people. Can we just circle back to the particulars, please? And then, of course, Lestat, because he's Lestat and incapable of saying it in any other way, is just like, are you fucking him? And he's like, well, yeah, he's a great lay and emotionally unavailable. And then Lestat is, well, not tremendously flattering in his response to what he says about Christine. It has to be said, but you know, I imagine if Christine's sleeping with him, she probably already knows him by this point and doesn't appear to be particularly fazed. And then the coup de grace at the end of this conversation is that Louis owns 45% of Lestat's merch, which seems a bit unkind. Let the man make his money, Louis. You have enough, you capitalist king, you. And then we, as you said, we go to the first musical sequence of the episode in which they're all doing very well. We've got Daniel scoping the crowd to find Gabriella.
Do like it. I do like it when when he like says, to look for like the cougar lady, and it's
Yeah,
just like some like very old uh
she was
generic
just
lady.
living her life. I loved that for her. That lady was having the bestest time rocking out to the vampire Lestat. Go Queen, I love you.
Yes.
But yes, he's like, no, 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 not her. That one, the Milanese Contessa, who is side-eyeing the hell out of him. And yes, because Gabriella's just like, we see her raise her hands to her ears at one point, and she's just like, what is this? But you've got Louis in the balcony, and I mean, it has to be said that Jacob Anderson looks ethereal in this sequence. He is obscenely attractive. Um, just like completely ridiculously. And he's still very, very pissed at Daniel. And Lestat is singing the song Why Do I Have to Feel? All songs by the incomparably talented Daniel Hart. And Lestat freezes the entire audience so that he can sing directly to Louis. And he's so hurt and he hurls his like mocked up book at Louis. And somebody like freeze framed on some of the sections. And there's one bit at the top where it says, "Why does Louis want to hurt me?" And another bit where it says, "Oh my Claudia." And I was like, oh, he's such a gentle soul. You can't see this now because this is a video podcast, but Kat is just like rolling her eyes like you wouldn't believe. But he is a gentle soul. He is my angel. He's so hurt. And Gabriella is instantly side-eyeing the fuck out of Louis. She's like, "Who's that?" Um, and she is eyeing him up and sort of unclear as to who, well, she must know who he is, but she's definitely side-eyeing him more than she should be. And then we have a sequence between Daniel and Mr. Dulac. And Lestat is so pissed off at this point that he kind of addresses the fact that obviously Lestat wasn't present at this sequence where everything else has been either his memory or his recollections or like present day footage. And so he calls them, which no doubt I'm sure the fandom will in no way comment on this, tertiary figures. And he's still calling Louis Mr. Dulac because he is very upset with him about how mean he's been in his book. And then says that his sort of retelling of this meeting will have less whining than their efforts.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is important to note this bit for
Yeah.
anything going forwards, because anything that we're now seeing without Lestat there, we're right. If this is his story, so
Yeah.
if he wasn't there, how can he say what it was? I mean, you could argue that later down the line he gets told, "Oh, I had this. Me and Daniel had this conversation. Me and Louis." But but also, we've learned from the last two seasons that we can have an unreliable
Mm,
narrator that isn't memory and recollection and things aren't always what they seem to be. So it is interesting to think about how much truth there is in these sequences. But it's a fun little sequence, with two pals catching up, and just Louis' horror that real Rashid really is just called Rashid. um and we have to say that, like, Real Rashid has had a little glow up since, he last worked for them.
He looks hard as fuck. Yeah. He's very attractive because we get before they pitch up, which it's like really, and as Louis points out, not cool. Not cool to spring the Talamasca on him when he's supposed to be having like a little catch up. We get the first mention of Armand by Daniel, where he starts talking about how he will be in a room and everyone else will vanish. And then he feels Armand. And he's like, oh, this must be the same for you and Lestat, right? And Louis like, no, no, that feels really, really weird. And Daniel's like, well, okay, I should have asked you before publishing, but I didn't. Sorry. And he's like, I didn't get any of the gifts. I got the low hanging balls gift. So we decided to publish it anyway and basically ask for forgiveness rather than permission, which is terrible. And Louis is like, we were finding that he and Lestat were finding their way back to each other, and the book really hurt him. And Daniel doesn't really care about that. I mean, the bottom line is he saw the money and he took it. And then we get this whole conversation about Louis seeing Claudia in a diner. And this is kind of the second doppelganger that the show introduces. And you're just like, oh, Louis. He's followed this person into a diner in New York who was a doppelganger of his daughter. And it's like, oh, well, you put the dress on the wall, but you're not in a good place, are you, Louis?
Yeah,
Because
it's the line that she looks like Claudia, but what she would have looked
yeah,
like if she'd have made it to her 20s. Which I mean, in reality, she made it to her 50s, but outwardly, she
yeah.
was she was still a 14-year-old girl. And it is that, yeah. It's and just the whole I know that we had issues with Yada in the first episode, but
Mm,
it does bring in this whole thing of,
a lot of doppelgangers.
yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not particular. I've only read the first of Anne Rice's books, but a doppelganger's a thing there. Is this something that we
Mm.
see normally, or is this something for the show?
I think it's something for the show, which is interesting because they are definitely, we'll get to that in a second, but they are definitely very much following their own path while weaving in all the themes of the book. They are absolutely going their own way with it. And then, yeah, Daniel just springs, hey guys, the Talamasca. You don't mind, do you? And Louis like, not cool. Absolutely not cool. And we flash to Gabriella and Lestat in the Italian, where of course they've just massacred everybody because, well, I imagine Gabriella's massacred most of them. And she is instantly focused on Louis, calling him an uncanny beauty, which is correct. And then she says the most horrific line, which is, I see why you gave him a daughter. I see why you took her back. Oh, so I mean, even she thinks that Lestat killed Claudia.
Yeah, I mean, before that, she does make a comment about how, when she came to see him with the cut, the
Yeah,
slit throat in the rub. So that is obviously filling in what happened to Lestat, once Louis and Claudia fled. It was obviously the little bat signal went up from Lestat, and that would have been one of the two times in the last century that Gabriella went to see him, and it was to, I guess, sort of nurse him back to health in some way. And obviously she wouldn't have known Louis.
I'm gonna be honest. I feel like she did fuck all to nurse him back to health. I suspect that was
Well,
Armand.
she at least gave him some blood or
She would have
something.
come to him. She would have come to him, but I guarantee if anyone nursed him back to health, even in a deeply, deeply unsettling way, that's going to be our orange-eyed ghoul.
Yeah, maybe.
Because his thing is all about possession, isn't it? It's all about smothering love and possession.
Well, yes.
I mean, in the books, he calls Armand, and Armand immediately captures him. We have no way, we don't know where they're going to go with that. If they even focus on it, if they even go back on it again. But yeah, I think I can see Gabriella coming to see him, but then I can also see her, like you said, just being like, uh, do I really want to deal with this? Do I really want to deal with the murder attempt?
I mean, I imagine that the most that she went back
Mm,
and she just basically made sure that he didn't die.
yeah,
So
basically.
she gave him a couple of raps and then went on her
Yeah,
way.
got him out of the rubbish
Yeah,
tip.
because obviously she didn't stay around for too long because he's then had long enough to, really start to miss her again. So it was obviously a flying visit, but she obviously got to know nothing about Louis other than what he had done to
Mm,
him. And this was an age where, it wasn't like she could go and look up his Facebook profile to see what he looked like or anything. So this is the first time that she is
no.
seeing who I guess in her logic, given what had happened to Lestat, was her son's abuser or her lover's
Yeah.
abuser, because that's the relationship that she prefers to have with
Mm,
Lestat. Because obviously she doesn't know any of the history, and I mean, given how cold-hearted she is, I'm not too sure that she would be necessarily too bothered about that history, which just
no.
makes her even worse.
No, I mean she says, doesn't she, that she saw as you said, the slit throat that was slow to heal and his rotting dressing gown or whatever. Because I suppose it depends on how they buried him. We didn't really see that. We see him in the shirt, but we didn't see how they actually dumped him in the box. God, if Louis put his dressing gown on him, that's even worse. Trying to cover up the blood. Oof. But yeah, she doesn't apologize remotely for suggesting that Lestat offed his own daughter. And as he said, we were having such a lovely evening, Sophia. And he's like, oh, are we not? She doesn't, she just says, forget I said anything. She doesn't take it back. She doesn't apologize. And then we get the second song of the episode. I'm going to massacre this. Sorry, guys. It's Baudelaire, and it is La Fontaine de Sang. It's a Baudelaire poem and I think it is the Baudelaire poem that in the first episode we see them torching.
Right.
Uh, but I will not pretend I knew that. That was from an interview with Daniel Hart this week. I wouldn't have a
Yeah,
clue
I was going to say,
otherwise.
because like, as much as there's subtitles on the episodes, there is not subtitles on that song. So it is all just in French
They are only releasing, because they've done it now for Detroit, they are releasing the songs on Spotify
afterwards.
after
Yeah.
the New York premiere. Oh, actually, the next day. I don't think they were even up. I don't think they were even up on the day of transmission on AMC. They're up the next day. And we don't have any of the song titles in advance.
No, but it's more obviously it's the lyrics because the song is
Yes.
sung in French
Oh,
and
it's
there's
in
no
French. I
subtitles.
have absolutely
I
no idea
mean,
what
I
he's
was I
singing.
was I was so close to video calling one of my French friends and just being like, "Hey,
Yes, please, French listeners, tell us what he's saying.
I know it's like 3 a.m. in LA, but what is
Yes.
he saying?" But that was because I was rewatching this far too close to us recording this. I'll have to be prepared for any future episodes where there's a lot of French. I'll have to get Pierre and the blower and be like, please help us, meek English women who studied French at school. But all I remember is je voudrais, because that's all my French teacher told me every lesson was to write.
Je voudrais.
She was like, there's this one phrase, write it in the back of your note. But I've literally got my exercise book and there's like 30 lines of je voudrais because she told us every lesson. And it basically means I would like. So she was basically just going to a shop and say je voudrais. So it's like, great. So just go into a shop and just point, like, I want that. I want that. Like, cool. That's not going to make me seem any less of a rude English person. Thanks, miss.
Unless you're in Paris, when you may as well just not bother, because
Oh, yes.
every time I've attempted to speak French, and I respect this, they just immediately answer in the most disinterested English you've ever heard. I'm proud of them. I'm proud of them. They got no time for tourists. Um, but yes, the song titles is a tricky thing, but these are the only two in this episode, the I Don't Know How to Feel and this particular one. And as Lestat is singing, we see him making Gabriella. So we see her lying, obviously dying of consumption, covered in blood. And he pushes past Nikki, which is the first little glimpse of him that we've seen. We saw him like 2 seconds in the previous episode. And Lestat has got his fancy specs on. I kind of like that they sort of look a bit like Dracula's, the Gary Oldman one, because
Yeah.
Sam Reed loves Gary Oldman beyond reason. So I felt that that was probably a nod from the costume designer Lex Wood to that. And I did like Gabriella's absolute wonder when Lestat takes the glasses off and she sees his eyes. And then he makes her. And then they go back and kill everybody. That is not in the book.
Well, they kill the adults. They don't kill the children because the
They don't kill the
children are
kids.
obviously with
Yeah.
Danny. Which again it leads me to think, is Yada some descendant of
Mm,
Lestat? And
could well
is that
be.
going to come into play? Because obviously, I think I sort of theorized last week that maybe Raglan isn't Raglan at the start of the thing,
Yes,
and
yes.
if he is Lestat at some point, Lestat needs to get back into his body, and if we're gonna kill the vampire Lestat's body, then why not stick it into this handy
Oh,
doppelganger's body instead?
poor Yada. Well, I mean, he seems quite happy with his lot at the moment.
He's not the brightest, God
He's
bless
not
him.
the brightest. Oh, such a little bunny. But yeah, they go back and just kill everybody. Lestat kills his brother. Gabriella kills her other son, and then massacres the hell out of the Marquis. And then we come back to Lestat, who is still trying to explain to us, the gentle listeners, the incest angle before basically just going, it's different for vampires.
Yes. Which
Yes and no.
to a degree yeah, to a degree in terms of like vampire lore and stuff, there's this whole thing about, is it really you who continues? Is it really that you look at something like Buffy, the
Mm,
vampires are supposed to be soulless. That's why it's a whole big deal
yes.
that, Angelus,
Angel and Angelus are very different.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Angel has a soul, and yeah, it's a similar thing in like the Vampire Diaries. They can turn their humanity off. They can just decide that they don't want to feel anymore, and they can just switch it off. So I kind of get it from that point of view, as like they're not humans anymore. They are this different being
Yeah.
entirely. And it's like, if anything in this scenario, she is not his mother, he is her father, which is equally twisted.
Yeah, because he says
Um,
that earlier, doesn't he? He says about that the vampiress Gabriella is a cool hang. No, he says something about his mother being a difficult hang, but the vampiress Gabriella is like great company, which I can see.
yeah. And then I think as well, just the fact that we have lived through the Game of Thrones thing, and more than Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon. Obviously, Game of Thrones, it was mainly, the Lannisters.
So I haven't seen that. I just keep seeing that. I keep seeing that meme where everyone's like, "Oh, they look like they're related," and the person is like, "Gonna hold your hand for a
Yeah,
second."
so House of the Dragon is the prequel, or one of the prequels to
Okay.
Game of Thrones, and it focuses purely on the Targaryens, and the Targaryens within Game of Thrones are known for their breeding in the family. They like to keep the bloodline. And the entirety of the first season is trying to get the audience to ship Matt Smith and Millie Aycock, who's playing Supergirl, who are niece and uncle.
Ew.
Like there's this whole thing where, like she's like 13, 14, 15, 16,
Ew.
and he's got designs on her and stuff, and it's like he gets
No.
jealous when he
Ew.
finds out that she's like sleeping with the help and that. And then
That's extremely wrong.
eventually, by the second season, I mean, she's slightly older by this point, but they are married. And there's this whole thing of like, wait, this is a program that's trying to get me to root for this couple, but he's her uncle and
Yeah,
she's his niece.
that's
So yeah, I
extremely
kind of
wrong.
think that any audience that are coming at it from this, it's like, well, at least they're both adults at this point, at least they're both of a
Mm.
consenting age
Oh
and we're
yeah,
not getting
no.
into children. So it's like,
No.
Why is there so much incest on television these days? It's like this is not right.
And I suppose the question here is, which I doubt the show will ever answer in a definitive way, is like, what age was Lestat when this began? And I suspect
Yes.
we're never going to get
Yes,
that.
because what we see in this episode is obviously it's when he has killed the
It's a
wolves.
grown-up Lestat. Yeah, it's a
And
grown-up.
yeah,
He's a grown man.
he is a grown-up man. But yes, they haven't.
They haven't delved, and I suspect they won't
And
delve.
I don't think, yeah, I don't think they will because I think that they're using the incest thing as kind of like a shock taboo factor thing, but not really going into any of the deeper implications and
Mm.
stuff of that, which is exactly what House of the Dragon did. It's like, why are you trying to make me ship this like 30-year-old man and his 15-year-old niece? This is
And I
gross.
mean, we have to be fair that it is barely subtextual in the book. I mean, as I said, the whole disturbing monologue about how she wants to have sex with all the men in the tavern is just straight out of the book. So it is, it's one of those things like if she was writing now, it wouldn't be subtext. So, Anne, what a woman. Complicated lady. And we finish up with Louis and the Talamasca, and they want him to go and merrily off the Detroit Coven. And this is where I said they throw in this one line here, which is insane, because they say that he's extremely skilled at dispatching and he's killed 32 people in Dubai, which is presumably all these vampires that have come for him. And he said, they say 31, and he says, oh, well, 32 if you count Agent Talbot, which is a reference to David Talbot. So we've just killed him off in a single line. Wow.
Has to answer the question of if we're getting him or not.
We're
We're not.
not. He's dead. He's dead. He very dead. Louis already killed him. That I think we all knew that David Talbot's place was going to be replaced by Daniel, but there we go. Definitive. And I suspect there's going to be some parts of the book fandom that will be a little unimpressed with that. I don't really care
Look,
about David, but
they've got Queen of the Damned if they want David.
oh God, still can't believe you made me
He
watch that.
exists in the universe, you know.
Can't believe you made me watch that. Yes, he does exist. If they want to say, and it's Doctor Who, isn't it? The Doctor. What's his name? With Nail and I. Name's
Paul
gone, but
McGann.
Sorry?
Paul McGann.
Paul McGann. That's it. Paul McGann is David Talbot. Um, but yeah, dead in a single line, massacred by Louis. And what I loved about this sequence of the Telemasca is I feel we should have just led with the last line there. Because we go through, oh, but we can't kill people. You're really good at killing people. You killed all these guys. You killed Agent Tubble, but we didn't really like him anyway, so don't worry about it. They tried to decapitate your love. None of this is moving Louis. But at the end they're like, oh, and by the way, the head of the Detroit Coven is called Bruce. You remember him? Bruce? Might have spent a few nights with your Claudia. Yeah, you should have led with that.
Yeah, well, obviously, I mean, they draw it out even more because they're like, oh, he goes by the name Killer,
Killer.
but you
Yes.
might know him as
You might know him
Bruce.
as.
Ugh.
So, yes. Da, da, da.
Yes, I mean, we suspected that Bruce would have to come back into this. You know, we had discussions
Mm,
on the previous seasons where it's like, well, there's got to be some sort of, you know, revisiting of
mm.
the Bruce thing, and you know, maybe the Claudia pages and all of that jazz. So now we know for sure that Bruce is definitely there, and I kind of
And
feel that maybe Louis might change his mind about not dealing with the Detroit Coven now that he has that little nugget of
yes,
information.
I feel that Louis is going to very much change his mind on that particular issue and do the Talamasca's dirty work for them. I do love Raglan, by the way. He's a joy. Very sprightly gentleman. But yes, and that is where we leave our stop in Toledo.
Yeah. So you were saying that you think that it looks like it's a very it's a very gentle episode compared to the
Mm,
chaos that was that first episode.
so
So
chaotic, so
it's a
chaotic.
little bit you kind of get your bearings a little bit more. You find out a little bit more about some of the characters. I mean, the band are very much do. Who are they? They're still very much
Yeah,
in the background.
that's a slightly sad thing that the band aren't necessarily getting as much love as we would like them to because there's a lot to get through.
Well, the fact that we've seen more of the lawyer than the band
Yeah,
is
but Christine is my girl, so I'm never going to be arguing about that. Look, I love positive lawyer representation. She is my queen. I adore her. Well, Christine, please. But yes, I agree with you that we need to see more of Larry and Alex.
so you think that we are taking some deviations from the book now then?
We are definitely taking some deviations from the book. It's very much its own thing, which is fun. I love that because Roland Jones was never going to give people a straight copy of the book. I mean, well, they sort of did that with Queen of the Damned, and it was truly terrible. So they're doing their own thing. They're doing their own thing. And the next stop on Lestat's tour is Toronto.
Yeah, so we are leaving the United States behind. We're crossing the border and heading up to Toronto for stop three. So do join us then. In the meantime, thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed our discussion, please do give us a like rating and follow wherever you're hearing us from. And also, share the pod. That helps us, get into more of your lovely ears and helps our coven grow. And yes, we really do appreciate you guys spending time with us, and we will see you in Toronto.
Bye.